Hi guys, welcome to another YouTube tutorial, and this is to show you one of the easiest ways to make kontomire stew. So I'm going to start off with some palm oil and I'm going to let that fry for a bit. If you know me, you know I don't really like Koobi and Momoni, but I'm going to use that in this recipe to give it that umami and local African taste. So you would soak your Koobi in plain water and change it about 3 times because Koobi is extremely salty and we don't want to do that to ruin our food. So I'm going to fry this Koobi for a few minutes. When I take it out, I'll then add in just a little piece of Momoni because, as I said, I'm not a big fan, but if you are, proceed to add as much as you want. I then added in some freshly sliced onions. I let that caramelize before I add in my blended onions with a little ginger and garlic. I gave that a good stir. Then I left that for a few minutes. Then I added in my blended pepper. You can use the red blended pepper or powdered pepper, but I feel like the green pepper gives it more flavor and the aroma is just amazing. I then added in my freshly sliced tomatoes. You can use tomato paste, but just a little. If not, it's just going to ruin the taste of your meal. Just use a little tomato paste if you want, but this is what I use. So I let that fry till it was soft and I covered that. So at this point, I feel like my tomatoes was almost done. So I added in just a little bit of water. So after blending my pepper, I rinsed the blender. Then I used the water from that in the stew to make the tomatoes soften and cook a bit more. You can use plain water. You really don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. After about 5 minutes, I then proceeded to add in some seasoning cube. And Koobi and Momoni is salty, so you'd want to taste your meal as you go before you decide to add in any salt. Now I added in my small pieces of Wele. I chopped it into tiny pieces because I want to have every bite should have just a piece of Wele, just to make it taste good. Then I added in just a little bit of salt. I usually cook my Wele with ginger, garlic, onion, and some salt. Some people just do with salt, but I feel like Wele just doesn't really have taste, so I give a bit of taste. I then proceeded to add in my tuna flakes, my tuna, and the Koobi. I gave that a gentle mix because it's fish and I didn't want it to ruin and just scatter everywhere. And I also added it at this point so the stew can be incorporated into it and it's going to also produce flavor in the stew. My tuna has been deboned, so you'd want to do that as well. Then I proceeded to work on my agushie. So I put some agushie in a container. Then I added in 1 egg and some water to form a thick paste. If you don't like egg, you can take it out and just do the agushie with the water. Then I added in some salt as well. And from what I know, the salt is supposed to make it lumpy. So I did add just a little bit of salt and I give that a good mix so everything is evenly distributed. My stew was going on really well and looking good, so I gave that a gentle mix to make sure it doesn't burn. Then I proceeded to add in my agushie. Agushie is melon seeds. You can get the actual melon seeds or you can get the already blended one, but I usually get the seeds and I blend it myself, make it like a powdery form, and I do that myself at home most of the time. That's if I'm not lazy, but you can already get the powdered one and then just do what I said. So after I put in my agushie, I'm going to cover this and make sure it cooks very, very well before I give it a mix. If not, it's just going to rip apart and just look like tiny little pieces. My agushie was halfway done here, so I did give that a mix. I left it for a while. Then I let it cook some more. And at this point it was done, so I added in my already cooked kontomire. So if you don't want to cook your kontomire, which is another way people also do that, you can chop your kontomire, soak it in salt water, and when you're about to use, you just take it out of the salt water. So if you're using that recipe, you'd want to be very, very careful when you're adding salt to your stew, because it already does have salt in the kontomire since you soaked it in salt water. But I usually just wash it in salt water, then I boil it in plain water before I use it. Then I add it to my stew. So after adding my kontomire, my stew needed more oil, so I poured the leftover palm oil I had in it. Then I covered that. Then my stew was all done at this point. I wanted to garnish it, so I added in some pepper and some onion. Then I went ahead to cover that again to make sure my pepper and my onion is slightly cooked, so it doesn't just taste raw. My stew was all done at this point. It looked and tasted delicious. I had that with rice, avocado, and some boiled eggs. Thank you.